There, now my mic is on. Good morning, everyone. Oh, hi, Peter says, happy Monday. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to Sex with Robin on Split Radio, where we talk about sex, kink, dating, any and all of that good shit. My name is Robin Beach. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a former stripper, former nurse. Oh, I did that in the wrong order. Former stripper, former pro dom, former nurse with experience in cardiology, psychology, and sexual health. And now I am primarily a sex and relationship educator slash coach slash consultant. I am located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish and Musqueam Indigenous tribes, colonially known as Vancouver, Canada. Check out for some resources on the social medias. Check out the Wet'suwet'en um, group. Actually, I should find out the handle for you right now. Instagram. I follow them. They're great. They gave a lot of updates on what's going on in those lands. Wet'suwet'en. Yes, it's called Wet'suwet'en Checkpoint, spelled WETSUWETEN underscore checkpoint. CHECKPOINT. It's a really good resource. And they also, when they post, will also give other resources for educating yourself and donations, volunteering, that kind of thing. So, I think I covered all the things. On today's show, I was figuring we could talk about the commonly known schools of consent in BDSM. And of course, there are different because you're thinking like, oh, just consent is consent. And in a lot of ways, yeah, like consent is consent. But at the same time, oh, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. I was going to say there's so many shades of gray that it's not black and white. Oh, now I'm thinking about 50 Shades, which is not like at all. The movies, books are not a a depiction of a consensual BDSM relationship. There are tons of consent violations and issues with consent. That's what a lot of people in the kink community are and have been kind of protesting about with that story. So I don't want to yeah, that's a whole other thing. Actually, I do on my YouTube channel. I have a video that I made of me watching the first 50 Shades movie, and I've been meaning to do that with all three of them, where I watch and then react and discuss. And I guess I should do the second one. I've been avoiding it. But the first reaction video is available on my YouTube channel. So, anyways, yeah, the schools of consent, and these are the ones that I am most familiar with. So, if someone wants to let me know of another kind of acronym or phrase or something like that in reference to consent and BDSM, please let me know. The ones I want to discuss are SSC, and I'll break them down. Rack and prick. Those are the really common ones that I'm familiar with. The most common being the SSC, which stands for safe, sane, and consensual. A lot of people have heard of this one. It's very commonly used, I think, mostly as kind of a PR thing in terms of the community trying to assure the kind of mainstream culture folks, so the muggles, if you will. I don't like to say vanilla because everyone I know that that phrase might describe a lot, they don't like it. They think it means boring. For the record, vanilla is my favorite flavor of ice cream. And even just by itself, everyone goes, yeah, but people, you like to put things on it. And I'm like, I do sometimes, but I will enjoy vanilla ice cream by itself. I love it. Fight me. But anyways, yeah, a lot of the mainstream culture that has like concerns over safety and things like that maybe aren't super knowledgeable with what the BDSM world is like, you will often hear SSC or safe, sane, and consensual. And it's great for PR. I'm giving you my honest opinions on it. I do not consider myself to be an SSC player. And I'll explain why. Please tell me your thoughts as well in the chat. Different schools of BDSM, maybe how you feel, whether you agree or disagree with me. That's totally fine. I'm not a combative, argumentative person. If I like to discuss. So that's why I'm here, to get the conversation open. So throw whatever you want to throw in the chats. And so the reason I'm like unsafe, sane, and consensual is I think that I'll break it down. Safe. You could be like, how could you debate that? But I'm about to right now. Nothing is quote unquote safe. Like when you hear the phrase safe sex supplies, a lot of people and communities and groups are starting to refer them as safer sex supplies because there's no such thing as quote unquote safe sex, right? Because nothing is safe. Like literally nothing to make everyone all paranoid, but seriously, living isn't safe. Leaving your house isn't safe. Going in a car isn't safe. Staying at home, there's, I mean, a ton of household incidents that happen that are not safe. Yeah, even working when I was in cardio unit, and we worked a lot with ER, of course, and someone that had to come in from ER. You hear that had came in because they had a nosebleed that was so bad that they passed out and they hit their head on the toilet, and they came into the hospital for concussion, and then they moved to cardio because it was clearly something. We're like, why did you have such a nosebleed? But anyways, that's medical stuff. So many things happen in bathrooms, in kitchens, okay, and in the bedroom. You hear of, someone, you could have a heart attack when you're sleeping. Sleeping isn't safe. Or like, going to the bathroom, having sex, like living, breathing is technically not safe. Being alive is not safe. So that's why I am like, you can't guarantee that anything in BDSM is going to be safe because like nothing is safe. So I am more of the minimizing risks, understanding and evaluating, and then making a decision for yourself, which is more later. So that's my argument. I'm like, nothing is safe. You can't guarantee safety in any situation, let alone a BDSM situation. So that's the safe. Sane, again, I'm like, I get it, because but at the same time, what does sane really mean? Because I have certain mental health struggles, right? And I've been very open about it. I suffer from a lot of mania. I'm technically bipolar, so I do get occasional depressive episodes, but I'm usually very manic. When my it's like I'm not manic all the time, but I have manic episodes, and I can. It's very well managed actually, with a lot of prescription and stuff, but I can get a little bit manic, and I also have ADHD. I do have CPTSD, which is basically like long-term PTSD. It's complicated, but my point is, am I considered technically sane? What does that mean? Does it mean you can't have any mental health struggles? Because that, I mean, that's a big population, right? What about, does it mean like of sound mind in the safe, sane, and consensual? Let me know your thoughts. If it means like, and that's kind of where I see it as, for those that consider themselves maybe more of a safe, sane, and consensual player, of sound mind. So like, yes, I have these mental health struggles, but as long as I'm not in like a manic episode or a depressive episode where my mental health is exacerbated or not necessarily something I have a ton of control over. Is that what that means? Does sane mean, and I would definitely argue that in safe, sane, and consensual, and in that kind of category of consent players, if I'm phrasing that right, that was weird, that they're not likely to want to play if you're angry. And I know people that enjoy playing in anger, and so like that's a risk aware thing that they're doing. And that, yeah. So I would say for someone who considers themselves more of an SSE player, they're not likely to play in anger or something like that. And maybe it just refers to, I think, if you do have mental health struggles, not playing when your mental health is exacerbated. Or your mental health concerns or struggles, I should say, when your mental health is exacerbated. That's an interesting phrase. Happy Monday, everyone. And then consensual, I mean, that's in safe, sane, and consensual. That's pretty standard. It needs to be explicitly consensual. There needs to be discussion over what's happening, and everyone agrees with what's going on. So, I mean, can't argue too much with that one. But the safe and the sane, I'm always like, what does that mean? So yeah, give your thoughts on the safe, sane, and consensual. I think it is, honestly, I feel like it's more of a PR thing, just to try to reassure the general public that we are being cognizant about the consent thing, and that we're trying to be as safe as possible. The second school of BDSM that I wanted to mention, this is a little more how I play, honestly, is called RAC, Risk Aware Consensual Kink. And that is basically referring to risk analysis. And especially as a healthcare provider, I basically see life as risk analysis. And I'll give an example. If a person is pregnant, okay, you have to be careful of certain things that you should or shouldn't eat, etc. But I'm going to give the example of Tylenol or acetaminophen. If you are pregnant, it's not a great idea to take. There are risks involved with acetaminophen during pregnancy. But if you have a fever and you are pregnant, right when you reach the level of the definition of fever, then it's a higher risk that your body's heated up that much. It's a higher risk to your pregnancy than acetaminophen would be. So when you're looking at risk assessment, it's like, okay, if I don't have a fever, I shouldn't take acetaminophen because there are risks that are unnecessary. If you have a fever, you should take acetaminophen to lower that fever because the fever is a higher risk than taking acetaminophen. Does that make sense? And that kind of thing, the risk analysis is something that we often have to do in our everyday lives. If you have an example, let me know of one where you're like, okay, there are risks here, there are risks here. Which do I need to choose? Which is a higher risk? Which are risks that I'm willing to take? And then you consent to the risks that you're taking. So I personally really like RAC just because it is aware of the fact that nothing is quote unquote safe. There are risks to everything we do. So I want to know what the risks are of what I'm doing. And then I can evaluate and decide which risks are acceptable to me. Which risks am I consenting to? Which can be all kinds of things, right? Hitting someone's chest. I talk about hitting people's chest in my impact play workshop. And I ask questions such as, do you have any heart conditions, any respiratory cardiac illness, blood pressure, asthma, diabetes? Those are the big ones. I think I've talked about that in other safety shows. Those are kind of the big questions that I often ask depending on what we're doing. And that doesn't mean I won't play with somebody. It just means, okay, well, again, risk assessment. What is a lower risk that is in terms of any healthcare conditions or health issues that you might have? That also includes medications. If you're on blood thinners, I'm a lot less likely to do something that would involve blood, right? Anyways, so yeah, with hitting someone in the chest, if I know they have a heart condition or a pacemaker, I'm not going to hit someone's chest. That is a much higher risk of something going wrong. And so, and this question comes up and you see it in people's heads, but what if you have a heart condition and you aren't aware of it? So if someone's like, yeah, I don't have a heart condition that I know of, and I'm hitting someone's chest and well, something goes wrong because they had a heart condition, that is a risk that you take, that you decide to choose to take. And I also say, get your regular checkups from your doctor. Like legit, go for regular checkups, because it's really important to know what your health status is and if you do have any conditions and how to work around them. Risk assessment. That's like, sorry, I'm going to try really hard not to talk an hour on that. I'll move on. But that's my point. I want to know what the risks are. I want to be able to evaluate them and then make my own decision in terms of what risks I'm willing to take. I'm willing to get hit in the chest because I see my doctor regularly. I don't feel like I'm pretty sure I don't have any heart conditions. I do get regular checkups. There's been no issues that have come up. It's still a risk. I'm willing to take it. And so, yeah, it's one of those things, because also things go wrong. Sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. Doing any kind of fluid exchange. Like, yeah, I do love blood play, or play that involves maybe cutting or using needles or anything that punctures the skin that opens up the opportunity for, of course, blood-borne pathogens. As a healthcare provider, we're taught to assume everyone has everything just so that you can take all the risk. Because again, you don't know someone's status in terms of illness or blood-borne pathogens and stuff like that. So healthcare workers are taught to assume everyone has everything. And that's something that I will ask and negotiate about in before playing. But things go wrong. It's happened twice in my life. Not during work. I've never stuck myself, which means like if you have a needle that someone else's blood has been on, that you've poked someone else with, and you stick yourself with that needle, that's sticking yourself. And in the healthcare scenario, they will immediately send you and it's it's one of those things that, I mean, usually if you're in a hospital or somewhere that has any kind of facility, they'll be like, yeah, go get your blood taken, and then you're going to have to get it done again in a few weeks just to check. At work, I never stuck myself. It doesn't mean I'm especially good or bad nurse, honestly. Things happen. If you're sticking yourself like every day, maybe you need to work on that. But anyways, yeah, no. So I never did that at work, but twice in my life I've done it during play. Well, one was like I'm not sure whether I stuck myself or not, and this is what you do. Actually, quick tip, because I had my gloves on and I had accidentally kind of scraped my hand with it a little bit, which a scrape, if could be considered exposure. And so what I did, fun tip, if you're not sure whether you might have stuck yourself, and what I did was I took my glove off gently and I filled it with water to see if there was a leakage. If there's no leakage, you're good. But there was a leakage and my hand looked fine. It felt fine, but I was like, if it broke the glove, I'm going to consider that sticking myself. And I told the person I was playing, and we were like, yeah, I mean, we'll both get tested. It happens. Things go wrong. The other time I stuck myself, I definitely gave myself like a tiny poke by accident. I was like, whoops. And I told the person I was playing with, I was like, pretty sure I just stuck myself. Like, I'm okay to continue if you are, and we could just get tested afterwards. And like, it was really casual. And the person was like, this is exactly what they said. They're like, risk aware. Yeah. Basically acknowledging the kind of rack, um, the kind of essence, I should say, of rack players. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're a rack player too, risk aware. There's risks involved. It happens sometimes. And then again, we both got tested afterwards. Totally fine. So that's what I really feel kind of emphasizes, again, the essence of rack players, the risk aware consensual kink. Now the other one, it's kind of funny because it's the acronym is the word prick, which is like doesn't exactly have a lot of positive connotations. Usually it means like you're an asshole. But prick players can be assholes, but they're not all assholes. It's almost like Slytherins. Yeah, some of the shitty people end up in Slytherin, but that doesn't mean all Slytherins are shitty. Give me your thoughts on that. I'm not trying to like piss off the prick players. I feel like, yeah, the prick players I know would nod and be like, yeah, there are some shitty prick players, but that doesn't mean everyone is. Prick stands for Personal Responsibility Informed Consensual Kink, which is essentially prick players don't want to talk negotiation to death. They don't want to make sure that you know what you're doing, and they don't want to have to evaluate that. They're like, no, if you're playing with me, like, you're kind of responsible for yourself in terms of your knowledge on playing and what you're willing to do. They don't want to negotiate to death. Oh, we got a comment right here. Knife play, cuts happen, no way around it. Totally. It's really truly, it's not if something goes wrong, it's when something goes wrong. And I think it's really important to not just have the understanding of what the risks are, but know how to respond in a situation, to be prepared for that. I guess that would probably be my nurse training coming in too. The expect the worst, hope for the best. I don't like that phrase. I kind of like to say to myself in my brain, I've kind of changed it to, instead of expect the worst, it's like be prepared for the worst, but hope for the best. Because things go wrong, and like, do think, what's the worst case scenario? How should you respond? Because it's possible, maybe not super likely if you minimize risks as much as possible and you're aware of what's going on and you practice things properly. Yeah, things can go wrong. And yeah, oh, so yeah, another comment here. Negotiations, assuming worst case. Sometimes you have to. It's one of those things. Like, no, we don't like to talk about things going horribly wrong, but you should be prepared for it, just in case. Have your, honestly, if you engage in the BDSM stuff, and just even if you don't, I think it's really important to have first aid training, CPR, that kind of thing, because things happen, and you actually can totally save a life just by being a bypasser that knows CPR or first aid. I lived in an apartment that was on. I wrote to the city. I might have. Sorry if you've heard me do this rant, but I lived in an apartment. It was on the corner where of a busy street corner that only had like, what do you call it, two-way lights. They needed it to be like lights all the way around. And I wrote to the city a couple times because there were constantly car accidents happening at this intersection, constantly. And I lived right on the corner, so I would hear it all the time. And it got to the point, like, not long after I started to live there, I kept my first aid kit and gloves right at the door because I'd hear screeches and a crash, and I'd grab my kit and go outside and help. Um, it makes a difference if you have any kind of training or experience. So I do highly recommend getting your first aid up to date, getting your CPR training up to date if you can, because things go wrong. So sorry, back to prick, back to prick playing or prick players. And I have played with prick players where they're usually, and this is like the good ones, because like I can see where maybe some shittier people that don't want to take on any personal responsibility might be like, oh, I'm just, even though I don't have experience, I'm just going to do crazy shit. So if you're playing with a prick player, make sure that that they do know what they're doing. If there's a way that you can verify that, whether it's vetting them by asking someone about them, by asking them about their experience levels, because like the good prick players are really experienced, and that's just it. They don't typically want to play with somebody that's like really new. They might want to just do some heavy play and not have to talk to death about it, which, and yes, I talk a lot about negotiation, but I've played with prick players where we were like, we also like knew each other. It's like, I know what you like, you know what I like. Here's my hard limits. You want to do some of this? Okay. How do we want to like how do we want it to feel? let's go. Figuring out the intent of the scene, giving our hardcore boundaries, cool, let's go. We don't have to talk to death about what the risks are and go over and make sure that they understand everything. It's just like, no, let's just go play. Which is, I would say, higher risk. But again, it's kind of it's personal responsibility informed consensual kink. It's like, yeah, I know my risks. Let's go. If that makes sense. So in certain ways it is edgier. It's usually edgier play or riskier play. And so it does, it's not often that someone would want to play, that a prick player would want to play with somebody really inexperienced. They want like an experienced player that knows their shit, that knows what they're doing, and they're like, cool, I trust you, let's do this. We got another comment here. A lot of edge players who are new to their play hide behind prick. Yes, thank you. That's exactly kind of what I was referring to in terms of the pricks of the pricks, if I may. The shitty people, which is why if you're going to play with a prick player, just if you're not already aware of their experience level, find out. Because some people might use the acronym to, what you're saying is to hide behind it and be like, well, I'm a personal responsibility. It's not on me. And it's like, okay, but did you know what you were doing? And interestingly, at least in Canada, it's different in each state in the United States. Check up on your consent laws, do some research, see if there are any cases that have gone to court. And anytime I go to the States, I do like with each state. So I know some cases in like maybe a handful of states, but that's it. So I'm going to base this on Canadian law. If in Canadian law, when there have been BDSM cases where someone was arguing, they consented to it. Someone that might try to hide behind the prick thing, being like, they consented, personal responsibility. In a court case, what they'll do is they basically need to establish whether you knew what you were doing or whether you were negligent. Like, again, like doing something that was outside of your experience level. And if in historically, at least, there's not a ton of cases, but the ones I've read upon is like the ones that really were doing fire play and just like put lighter fluid on someone and then lit it. That was a real case. And it was between a husband and wife, and the husband was like, she consented to the fire play. And the judge essentially was like, okay, but it's really obvious that you had no fucking clue how to do fire play, that you didn't have any experience, and you legit just decided to set someone on fire, telling them, oh, well, this is fire play. Like, no, that's not how that shit works. You obviously have no clue what you're doing. Someone cannot consent to that. And there have been cases, there's like two I can think of off the top of my head, where something went wrong and it went to court, and the judge had determined that they did know what they were doing and they understood the risks, and that it was kind of outside of the top's control. And they were like, it did sound like you know what you were doing. It was a branding. The one I'm thinking of was a branding incident. And it's like, you did sound like you know what you were doing, but this person maybe didn't care for it properly afterwards, and it got infected and didn't come out right. And it was like, you consented to that. The judge had basically quoted that it was in the realm of a tattoo or body modification, and was like, sorry, it did sound like you consented and that you understood those risks. And this person didn't show like major negligence. So that stuff does get actually really fascinating. If you're interested, there's some really interesting cases out there just online if you Google them. I've got another comment here. Huge with breath play. People learning, quote, good, there's quotations, good, safe techniques but have no idea how to treat a whoopsie, as everyone's body is different. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, breath play is a very also edgier or higher risk. When I say edge play, yeah, that means typically higher physical, emotional risk. And breath play is definitely edge play. There are higher risks involved. I do a breath play workshop that discusses the risks and a lot, very importantly, how to respond to things going wrong. River Dark, again, I'm always going to blow smoke up her ass, and that's the way it is because she's amazing. If you ever see River Dark does a really good breath play workshop that she just did it at Kink Fest, and I got to demo bottom, which is so much fun. And she goes over really, really interesting stuff in terms of what the risks are, and also like questions that follow. Like yeah, like when you hear of, okay, well, it is dangerous in certain dangerous again. What are the risks with breath? There's breath play and blood play in terms of asphyxiation, and it's like, yeah, there are certain dangers to being asphyxiated for longer periods of time, but then it's like, what about holding your breath? So, really great workshop, highly recommend. Oh, there's another comment here that says, best is Daddy Crone for that. Ooh, I know who that is, and I don't think I've seen a breath play class by them. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing, Daddy Crone. I want to see a breath play class by them. Find breath play to be a very interesting topic. Also, because I come from it. I approach it from the healthcare worker in me because I did work a cardio unit, and so there's a lot of interesting stuff about like respiratory acidosis and how that works, and hypoxia, which is, not enough oxygen going to the brain and what happens to your body. And yeah, so there's always risks. Know what your risks are. Do your own research. Go to workshops if you can. Honestly, I know that that's a financial privilege a lot of the time. But I also know that myself included and tons of other presenters would be totally okay with like a donation or something like that, or whatever. I know I am. I do a lot of my work by donation or like pay what you can, because I really firmly believe that this kind of information should be available for free. At the same time, I got to pay my bills, but that's where donations are really helpful with stuff like that, or pay what you can. Because I do have clients that will pay on the higher end, knowing that that helps me be able to help those that might not have those kinds of financial privileges. If it's like a workshop or an event, find out if you can volunteer, because a lot of events will either comp you or give you a discount if you volunteer, and then you can go to the workshops and you could learn things, right? It's like, do what you can. And I know with COVID it's been difficult, but things are opening up. It's happening. I can't get too excited because I'm scared. It's exciting. Oops, I'm too excited. So yeah, I feel like those are the basic kind of schools of consent. And so I would put them on a bit of a spectrum in terms of edginess. It's not that SSC players, they could engage in edge play, but I would say those that really are very like SSC typically don't. They want things to be safer, saner, consensual. That's what it should be now. Maybe it shouldn't be safe, sane, and consensual. It should be safer, saner, and consensualer. Uh, a lot of rack players. I definitely call myself a rack player, though I have also played with prick players, where it's like, yeah, someone that I know or that I know of that I've seen them play. If I don't know them personally, it's someone I've seen play. It's someone I've seen teach it or speak, and yeah, so it's someone that I would also vet and be like, hey, have you played this person? Okay, they're cool. All right, but usually when I play with prick players, it's somebody that I know and somebody that I've played with and somebody that I trust to do really heavy edge play with. Oh, I'm gonna blow smoke up River's ass again. And I was saying this, I've like, you are the one. There's maybe two people in my life that I would trust with like my life in their hands. Probably Brandon and River, like, cause River and I, could do pretty edgy play, but it's like, no, I totally trust her. So we don't always have to go into like crazy negotiation, and we don't. We'll be like, hey, how are you feeling today? That's a good one. We'll be like, how are you feeling today? What's going on inside? What are you craving? How do you want to feel? And then we don't usually go over our limits anymore. But I usually be like, hey, so no anal penetration and don't fuck up my tattoos. That's it. um, Oh, we got another comment here that says, ask for references. It's happened to me as a top. Yeah, I have. And if you don't mind, because I'm like, I do agree with this. And part of me is like, but keep in mind, I feel like that I would put an asterisk next to ask for references, because this is the thing with references. No one's going to give you a reference that would speak negatively of them. So the references that when I'm like you said, and I have been asked for references, and I'm like, cool, yeah, I will happily give you some references. But of course, I'm going to give references to those who I know is going to say, like, yeah, I'm not going to give you the name of someone that doesn't like me or, you know. So when people have asked me for references, I will give references, and then I'll usually be like, but talk around. Don't be afraid to talk to other people. Um, because that's the thing. Someone can have really a bad track record on some things. So they're not going to give you references from things where scenes have gone really wrong or it was a really shitty situation. So I say, yeah, references are good. You can ask for them, but I typically don't ask someone for references unless like I really want to. I might just ask somebody that maybe knows them, or somebody that if they're not located in my kind of geographical location, I'll just contact like an event organizer in the area or someone that I know knows them. But like, hey, so you can ask for references. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to put an asterisk next to that to be like, make sure that you realize that the references you're getting are likely to be positive. Um, in the pro doming world, references totally, if they have them. Yeah, that's another side thing. When pro doming, I would ask if they had ever seen a pro dom and if they'd be willing to tell me which one so I can contact them. And comment, yeah, event organizers is a great idea. Yeah, thank you. I do encourage people, if you're like they're from a city you don't know, look up what events they have and contact an event organizer, because the event organizers usually know people in the community, and can even say, yeah, I've seen them at these events, no problems. And if there have been major problems in the community, it's not guaranteed, but there's a really good chance that an event organizer is aware of it, because maybe they had to get banned from an event, or that kind of thing. Event organizers are really good people to go to for references, because they're more likely to know what's going on in their community and more likely to recognize somebody and be able to provide a good reference. So event organizers, do go to them. And as a former event organizer, yeah, we would get questions from people from other cities, be like, hey, what about this person? And we're like so happy because we're like, yes, we know, we know the community and we see what happens at these events for long periods of time. So they're going to be a good chance. Or even if they don't know that person, they probably know someone who does. So there's your tip. Um, so yeah, the thing that all of these schools of consent, the things they have in common, of course, is the consent part. So, like I said, obviously there needs to be explicit consent in what you're doing ahead of time. Do not negotiate or renegotiate mid scene. Just don't. You are not necessarily going to be in the right state of mind, which actually, yeah, goes to the SSC again. Are you sane when you're in headspace? You're technically in an altered state of mind. Anyways, so yeah, make sure you negotiate, you get an explicit consent, and you discuss what that consent looks like as you're playing. What ongoing consent is, right? It's not like, oh, well, you said it was fine. No, that's what things like safe words are for. That's what things like words are for. You can also have um, visual or audio safe words that aren't necessarily verbal. You can have someone raise their hand or have someone holding something in their hand that they need to drop if something is wrong, that you need to check in, things like that. Um, so make sure that that's what they all have in common: consent, explicit consent, and ongoing consent. Otherwise, it's abuse or a crime or major violation if you don't have the consent. So obviously that is consistent throughout the schools of BDSM. It's just a matter of they vary, I think, mostly by risk assessment in terms of how risky or how edgy the play is. If it's, like I said, edge play or edgier play typically means like higher physical and emotional risk. So the SSC players are a lot lower on that spectrum of typically the risk, how risky or edgy the play is, and kind of goes along the spectrum that way. Determining how risky or edgy the play is and how much communication goes into that. But along the entire line, it has to be consensual. And that includes consensual non-consent, which is I know it's always fun trying to explain consensual non-consent. It literally means like you are consenting to not consent. Your consensual non-consent is the like, is it okay to say no? Does no mean stop? Does stop mean stop? Because some people like to play with that. Some people want to fight back or struggle or be able to say no, stop, but they actually want you to keep going, which is also an edgier form of play. Consensual non-consent is edgier. So how do you communicate stop? Are you able to communicate that you need to stop? And what does that look like with ongoing consent? Woo woo. Um, I'm never going to tire of talking about consent. I'm a human being, therefore I am flawed, therefore I fuck up. But I think what's most important as humans is to always, and I mean always and forever, be trying to do better. Learn from our mistakes. Continue research. Which, yes, there's, as Kevin A. Patterson said in his book, Love is Colorblind, he says, there's no finish line. And I love that. There's no finish line. We're human beings. We are flawed. We are going to fuck up, but we need to address it, take responsibility for it, try to learn from it. How can we do better going forward? Oh, it must have been like my first day in nursing school. The first day we were taught, you're not done school when you're done school. Give it 5 years and the medical knowledge will change. And that's also how we are as people, as society, also with kink, because yeah, we're learning more about consent. We're learning more about different types of play. We're learning more about each other. We're always changing, and it's healthy to change. So yeah, that needs to be an ongoing thing. We're just always trying to do better. So yes, I do want to continue always talking about consent, because that is an ongoing topic in the world. That is an ongoing topic in terms of how we understand consent. And it's an ongoing topic in how we are trying to educate and improve ourselves. Another comment here. Love Kevin Patterson, and that M I think stands for Mandy, I bet. Mandy. Um yes, Kevin A. Patterson, again, another person if you see is going to speak somewhere or something like that, go. He's an incredible speaker, incredible human being. Love him. So yeah, any other thoughts just as we kind of finish up here on the schools of consent? Safe, sane, and consensual, risk-aware consensual kink, and personal responsibility informed consensual kink. And of course, I got to mention, which I learned this morning from Mandy. Thank you, Mandy, that it is masturbation month. And that makes me so happy. Oh, got another comment from M, who I'm assuming is Mandy. His books are a must. Yes, the Love's Not Colorblind, fucking incredible book. And I need to get more of his books. If he's written other books, I got to look those up. But hey, masturbation month. It is masturbation month, which is super cool. And I need to figure out with Mandy when, because I really want to do like a back-to-back show again on, but this time on masturbation, on mutual masturbation, on like masturbating in front of people, masturbating like maybe while you're watching something, or maybe someone's watching you. By yourself masturbation, we can talk solo dates, we can talk toys. And speaking of toys, and this is why I've decided every episode this month for masturbation month, I want to discuss a toy that I recommend. And it's in another room. Shit. But it's, you'll know it. And it's a very popular toy. This week's toy, I'm going to talk about the magic wand. Formerly known as the Hitachi. That was the original name of the toy, the brand name basically, and then it got bought. And so now it's called the magic wand. Highly recommend the magic wand. You can get it on adamandeve.com using my promo code SWR. Right there. I'll put that up on the screen. adamandeve.com using promo code SWR. You can get 50% off almost any one item, including free shipping in the US and Canada. And I did look it up just before on adamandeve.com, because when it says 50% off almost any one item, that's like most items, but here, there's one that might not have as much. And sometimes it's like, for this one, this is like the magic wand is a staple. It's a very popular toy. The magic wand, there's a rechargeable one and there's the plug-in one. Both are great. And so the magic wand on adamandeve.com will give you 20% off for that item plus free shipping, just so as you know. But I mean, it's a good deal. It's still a damn good deal, because the magic wands are, admittedly, they are pricey, but they are really, really powerful. I'll give you quick pros and cons. The pro of, I would say, the one that plugs into the wall is, the pros are that it is consistently really powerful. I forget to charge things, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm like, oh, just plug it in. And yeah, it's consistently very powerful. And I would say that the highest setting on the plug-in one is more powerful than the highest setting on the rechargeable one. The cons of the plug-in one is that you have to plug it in. So you're going to need an outlet, or, yes, that's right, Mandy, I said out. an outlet, an outlet, an outlet, or like an extension cord, something like that. The other con, and this could be a pro, but I'm going to say it's a con for the plug-in one, is that there's like literally 3 options. There's off, there's on, and then there's like super on. So it can be a lot. Usually the way I might navigate that if it's too much is I just put like a blanket or towel or clothing between myself and the vibrator at first. And then once I've warmed up, I can remove those or not. The rechargeable one, the magic wand, I find is really great. The pros, of course, is that it is rechargeable, so you can go without the cord. A pro is that you can still use it while plugged in. You don't have to unplug it in order to use it. So that will help with the power thing. Um, a pro is that there's like 5 levels, so you can gradually, some of them have like a knob that you turn. The one I have is like a button, so each time you push it, it increases. That's a pro. Cons, it's not, I find even at fully charged, it's not quite as powerful as the one that you plug in. And cons is that, yeah, if it could die. So I forget to recharge things. There's your pros and cons for my toy for masturbation month is the magic wand, formerly known as the Hitachi. Again, promo code SWR on adamandeve.com. For that toy, it'll give you 20% off. I got a comment here. Oh, it's Christy. Hi, Christy. Haha, like a Canadian. We love it. I know. Eh? It is who I is. And I got another comment here from Christy. The plug-in one, oh, that's another one. Thank you. The plug-in one can be quite loud as well. I do find that the rechargeable one is slightly quieter. Still pretty loud, but I mean, it's a privilege I have where I don't have to worry as much about the noise of a vibration. But yeah, it's part of having the power. You can't have the power without the noise sometimes. So yeah, thanks you all so much for joining me today. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do next week. So if you have a request, please let me know. I'm on all of the socials at Sex with Robin. And yes, also, quick reminder, we are on Spotify and SoundCloud now. So typically the day that this airs, I will have it on the episode on SoundCloud and on Spotify. If there are other podcast platforms that you'd like us to expand to, please let me know and I'll make it happen. And also, yeah, stuff's available on YouTube and all that good stuff. So don't forget to check it out. And so next week, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what Mandy was doing. Mandy was going to talk about talking to your kids about ethical non-monogamy. So that's going to be at 9 a.m. PST or noon EST next Monday. And then my show's right after that, 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST. Oh, we've got another comment here from Peter. Hi, Peter. Perhaps talking femdom male sub compared to male dom fem sub. Yeah, I wanna, my brain is, wheels are turning. Yeah, we can do that. I want to be gender inclusive, but at the same time, like, yes. So I'm going to work on a way to really work on the gender inclusivity of those kinds of topics. But I really love that because there are differences in how society represents gender in terms of tops and bottoms and how that affects the community and even just different dynamics. Yes. Thank you for that, Peter. Oh, yes, you did message me. Thank you, Christy. The topic I messaged you about asexual relationships and finding intimacy. And then I've got another comment here. That's not at all what I'm doing, lol. I'm doing, oh, Mandy, thank you. When your kids don't like your partner. Thank you for clarifying and correcting me on that. That is what Mandy is doing. When kids don't like your partner. I'm going to be tuning the hell into that. That sounds awesome. Got another comment here. I'll have to rewatch this later. What time is it available on YouTube? Pretty much right afterwards. It automatically it's automatically live on YouTube, and then it just sticks after it's done. And I'll put it to replay again at 7 p.m. PST. What was that? 8, 9, 10. 10 p.m. EST. So I will reschedule that for a rewatch later tonight as well. Just this. We'll replay again tonight. So yes, thank you everyone for tuning in, and don't forget to tune in next week. Let me know, and thank you for these topic requests. I will do both of those. Thank you. And so yes, thank you so much for joining. And remember, everyone, if your family or loved ones don't accept, hey, he almost went the full hour without interrupting. My other kid is sick now. All right. If your family or loved ones do not support or accept you, I am your family now. Thanks. Bye.
Those polyam, the loose smith is